and the Russians eventually, after 24 hours, had enough and just ran away.
As we've been reporting for a few days, Ukraine has taken thousands of square kilometres of land back off Russian forces. This morning we can get a picture of what that looks like on the ground with the Times' Richard Spencer. He's in Kharkiv now, but has visited the Balaclava, which was recently retaken. Morning to you, Richard.
Morning.
What was it like? Is it a Balaclava where you were? What was that like?
Yeah, a very interesting place to go to yesterday. We spent several hours in this town, which was the original town that was the target of this offensive last week, which actually ended up taking not just this town, as you say, but the Russians kind of caved, and the Ukrainians managed to sort of storm through and take towns right up the way to the Russian border to the northeast. Quite incredible. And we had a very interesting visit to this town. We found people who'd witnessed the whole battle last week. Quite remarkable stories of people standing on their doorsteps watching the Russians retreat through the town. They blew up the bridge as they went, but it did come after 24 hours of a very striking, that's in two terms is the use of the word, artillery barrage from the Ukrainians, which they said was incredibly striking in its accuracy. That's what they told us, that for the previous day, the Russian positions in the town have been hit with incredible pinpoint precision. The anti-aircraft batteries were struck in the road. The Russians tried to run away and hide in various buildings, but it was said one of the townsfolk said it was like the artillery was following them round. That they'd go into a building and then the artillery would get them there. So the Ukrainians obviously have good surveillance, good intelligence, and of course they now have these very accurate artillery pieces sent by the West. And the Russians eventually, after 24 hours, had enough and just ran away.
It's a striking thing, Richard, this, isn't it? That effectively Russia is fighting against not only a hugely motivated and skillful force in the Ukrainian army, they are effectively fighting against the munitions of the whole West, aren't they? And maybe are we seeing that these very high-tech weaponry that the West has managed to provide finally is actually starting to pay off? And that's the reason why Russia's folding so quickly here.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember the first sort of war in Iraq, the first Gulf War, when Britain and America obviously leading the way, went in to liberate Kuwait after Saddam Hussein took it. And it was kind of the first war we'd all watched live on TV. And the thing that was, mind-boggling then, because it was kind of the first major war that America had waged since, the disaster of Vietnam, was watching these targeted cruise missiles take out very precise buildings from, that had been fired from a submarine hundreds of miles away, and suddenly it whacked into, number 23 Acacia Avenue in Baghdad, which we were completely unprepared for. We hadn't gathered, really, I think most ordinary people, how modern warfare had changed in that way. I mean, I remember John Simpson on the BBC watching a cruise missile, as he put it, kind of turn left at the traffic lights because it was being so sort of accurately provided, which wasn't how we saw war in those days at all. And I think this war is the kind of artillery equivalent. I don't think people realize that you can stick basically an old-fashioned, what looks like an old-fashioned cannon in the woods, and just bring it down on a target with incredible accuracy, often more than 10 miles away. And I think that's something that we're going to take away from this war.
Yeah, and the people you're speaking to, I mean, optimism is a dangerous thing in everything, including war. And it's easy to say to ourselves, well, look, this is a romp now. The Ukrainians have got the Russians on the run. They're pushing them east. They can kick them out of the country. Is that the mood of people, or is caution being preached as well?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of Ukrainians, that was the mood right from the beginning, particularly after the failure of the initial attack on Kiev. When the Russians were driven back, that caused a wave of euphoria, and a lot of people are very gung ho about the war and think they think that it's going very well for them. I mean, yeah, I think there's a kind of double think going on as well. People are kind of frightened and scared and worried about how long it's going to go on for and the effect on their livelihoods. I mean, the economy is ground to a halt. Behind the scenes, people are, I think, aware that it's a pretty grim situation that Ukraine finds itself in. But a lot of people are saying, look, don't think about just this war. I mean, this is the really frightening thing. I think a lot of people don't. We're always at war with Russia. We're always going to be at war with Russia. So, so they're not even really thinking in a lot of cases about, can we get back the territory we've lost since February? They're not thinking in those strategic terms. They're just thinking we're always at war with, with Russia, and this is just another iteration of that. I mean, you're absolutely right. Just because they've taken this, basically half a province, if you like, in the northeast, they've still got a huge amount. The Russians still have a huge amount of territory in the south and east. This is only a very small proportion of that they've taken in the last week.
Yeah. I just wonder before you go, Richard, are you feeling safe because you're close to the front line, but is it because you're kind of behind an advancing army? Does that feel relatively secure where you are personally?
From a personal point of view, it's a kind of odd war. It's because of this artillery aspect, really. I mean, there isn't this. It's not like sort of being with the troops in the trenches in the First World War, and it's certainly not like being in a civil war like like in Syria, where there's always a risk of kidnap or roadside bombs or terrorist attack or. It's just this frontline war with artillery. So if you're with the troops where there's an artillery barrage, it's very dangerous. You just don't want to be there at all. And there's actually not a lot of point in being there from a reporting point of view because no one's going to be talking to you or giving you interviews when there's artillery coming in. So the rest of the time you're behind the lines. And the only risk is from this kind of slightly weird, sporadic Russian bombardment of towns and cities, So, here in Kharkiv, they sent a cruise missile to strike the power station where we're middle of supper the other day. So everything went black, and they hit the power station. Luckily, they didn't hit the hotel, but they could have hit the hotel. And but then that's a kind of small risk that everybody faces all the time. Your only real danger is if you're going to the front lines to interview there when there's artillery going on. Okay.
Well, listen, Richard, I think you're doing a great job, and even that small danger of a Russian missile hitting your hotel is still a danger nonetheless that I wouldn't like to face. So you're doing a great job. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks a lot.
That's Richard Spencer there for the Times. He's in Kharkiv, so near to the front line as this rapid advance continues.